Hey, good evening. The Design Review Board public meeting of June 11th, 2020 is called to order. Due to the COVID novel coronavirus and health recommendations from the LA County Health Department, the Design Review Board meeting is being conducted virtually with no members of the public present. The public is encouraged to watch and participate from the safety of their homes to practice social distancing. The meeting can be viewed on local cable TV and is being streamlined online at the city's website at www.glendaleca.gov. For public comments and questions during the meeting, please call 818-937-8100. Again, that's 818-937-8100. City staff will be submitting the questions and comments in real time to the appropriate person. Current Design Review Board agendas are available by visiting our website at www.glendaleca.gov. Records of the decisions for all projects will be posted online on the Planning Division's website. Please note that any appeal of any case heard today must be filed within 15 calendar days of the design review decision date. The appeal application is also available online. The chairperson may reorder agenda items at his discretion. In terms of a roll call, Board Member Arzumanian, who's joining us by telephone.
Present.
Board Member Francesca Smith, also joining us by phone.
Present.
Board Member Welch, also by phone.
Here.
And Chair Simonian is here present.
Present.
In the hearing room. The reports regarding posting of the agenda. The agenda for July 11, 2020, regular meeting of the Glendale Design Review Board was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall. Approval of the minutes. These would be the minutes from May the 28th, and at that time, all board members were present. So is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Ari now.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
I second it.
Forgive me, that's a motion made by Board Member Welch, and that was a second by,
Smith, if you could hear it.
thank you. Yes. So in terms of a roll call, Board Member Arzumanian,
Yes.
Board Member Smith,
Yes.
Board Member Welch,
Yes.
and Chair Simonian.
Yes.
The minutes pass 4-0. Also, we would like to make note at this time, if in terms of a roll call as well, we'd like to thank Board Member Stefan Benlian. He was a wonderful board member. He acted as chair pro tem in the recent meetings, and he brought a lot of design expertise to the board. We also want to congratulate him on his election to the Glendale City College Board of Trustees, and as such, since he is sitting on as an elected official on another board, unfortunately, he had to step down from DRB, so he will be greatly missed. So thank you very much, Stefan Benlian, for your years of service and your expertise on the board.
Right. And I echo those thoughts as well. I know Simon was just a wonderful addition to this board, and he had some very good thoughts and ideas along the way, and was there to fill in when we were short on individuals and quorums, etc. And so he will be missed, and we wish him all the best in this next new chapter in his life. With that, we'd like to start off with PDR 2001-865-617 Hazel Street. And I'm going to turn this over to staff for them to give us a presentation.
Good evening and thank you. This is case number PDR 2001-865 for the project site located at 617 Hazel Street. The project site is a 6,376 square feet vacant lot on the western side of Hazel Street, located in the R2250 zone. The applicant is proposing to construct a new two-story, 2,684 square foot single-family dwelling with an attached 436 square foot two-car garage. In terms of site planning, the new single-family dwelling is designed to address the minimum and average setback requirements per the zoning code and is considerate of the prevailing setbacks on the street. Outdoor areas include a spa and fire pit in the rear and is well integrated into the design. The site plan indicates that a fence or wall along the interior property lines, but no details are provided. Staff is recommending a condition of approval that revised drawings and material board showing details for the proposed fence and wall be submitted. Also, because the proposed drawings do not indicate the locations of any equipment such as HVAC and trash storage, staff is recommending a condition of approval that revised drawings be submitted for that. The surrounding neighborhood features a combination of attached and detached garages at the rear or front of the residential buildings. So the siting of the new 436 square foot attached garage is appropriate. The proposed landscaping will significantly exceed the code required minimum and complement the appearance of the house and the neighborhood. However, the proposed landscape plan currently shows less than 50% of the street front setback area is live landscaping due to the driveway and the wide pathway, and no planting scheme at the rear yard. Staff is recommending a condition of approval that revised drawings show a developed planting scheme at the front and rear yard perimeter, in addition to reducing the proposed pathway width to 4 feet. In regards to mass and scale, the predominant neighborhood pattern features one-story homes with several two-story buildings scattered throughout Hazel Street. Therefore, the applicant's proposal to build a new two-story dwelling is acceptable. The proposed shed roof forms are compatible with the overall style of the development. The use of a 1-in-12 roof pitch is appropriate and consistent throughout the design. While the proposed floor area of 2,684 square feet is within the floor area requirement of the subject zone, the proposed building looks larger in comparison to the surrounding neighborhood, which features modestly sized homes. The two-story mass is broken up by changes in facade planes and balconies and doubtfully placed landscaping, yet retains the sense of monumentality due to the floor-to-floor height of the first floor and overscaled fascia height. Staff is recommending a condition of approval that the floor-to-floor height of the first floor be reduced to 10 feet from the proposed 11, which would also reduce the floor-to-floor height of the sunken living room area to the rear of the home from 14 feet to 13 feet. In addition, staff is recommending that the roof fascia height be reduced to 12 inches from the proposed 18 inches. The surrounding neighborhood features a mix of architectural styles, with minimal traditional style being the most dominant. In terms of design and detailing, the new dwelling's contemporary style, along with its natural hued color palette for the exterior, create visual interest and easy transition between different architectural styles in the area. The entryway is appropriately integrated into the design and features a covered recessed single-door entry. The new house features 3 balconies, one over the garage, one each on east and west elevations. These balconies are accessible through the second-floor bedrooms and are at a reasonable distance from the adjacent properties. Landscaping is provided at each balcony to create a buffer between the adjacent properties and the street. The new windows will be wood nylon frames with recessed glass and flush to the wall, and an appropriate combination of sliding and fixed windows. The second-floor master bedroom, located to the rear of the dwelling, features a curtain glass wall, which you will see in the PowerPoint, which may raise privacy concerns. Staff is recommending a condition of approval that the number of windows be reduced for privacy. The proposed materials include wood siding, smooth light-colored stone tiles, natural stone tiles, standard brown torch down for the roof, aluminum textured trim painted brown for the fascia, and metal seam for the balcony above the garage, which are appropriate for the proposed contemporary design. In addition, the proposed light fixtures as shown on the drawings are compatible with the proposed style and are appropriately located above the garage doors at the street-facing facade. However, in order to avoid overlit facades, Staff is recommending a condition of approval that lighting above the garage be reduced to 2 fixtures instead of the proposed 3. Additionally, all exterior lighting should be indicated on the elevation drawings. There were no public comments received regarding this project, and staff is recommending approval of the project with 8 conditions as noted in the staff report. That concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Board members, do we have any questions for staff at this point?
Yes, this is Board Member Welch. Just one clarification on condition number 6. It states reduced number of windows for the curtain glass wall on the west elevation. Is that for both the upper and the lower floors, or just for the upper floor?
That's actually in the area where it's a double height space for the living room. So it's not, doesn't correspond to floor heights. Does that make sense? Commissioner Welch, you were talking about the east elevation?
I was referencing number 6, the number of windows for the curtain glass, and you're saying that that's for both floors?
I think there may be an error in the reference. Minji perhaps could correct that, because the curtain wall that's called out on the drawings is on the east elevation, and it corresponds to the double height living room.
Yes.
And we don't really have any curtain, technically that, I don't know if that's curtain wall there, but we don't have any windows like that on the west facade. So I think the condition should be written referencing the east facade.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any more questions for staff at this point? I'll take that as a no. With that, we'll go ahead and open up to the public. By the way, as far as protocol for this evening, what we're going to try to do is have the applicants or the architect or designer speak, and then we'll go to the public, and then we'll have the public kind of go through all their comments. So all the speakers from the public will speak, and then at that point in time, we'll let the applicant or the architect or designer address all the specific questions and comments that may have come up. This way, we're not toggling back and forth between phone lines, which is somewhat challenging from this point of view, from our point of view, sitting here with all these phone lines blinking in front of us. So with that, we're going to go to line 1, which is Sona Zarkuyan, who's the applicant for 617 Hazel. Ms. Sona, you're on the air. Go ahead and state your name for the record and walk us through the project.
Designer along with Vartan Kasemian, who's sitting next to me.
Very good, Sona, welcome. We'll assume you guys are working in tandem. You're going to have a certain amount of minutes to go over the project, and at that point in time, if there are any callers that come in, we'll take all their comments. Please write down their comments so you could address them at the tail end. So with that, go ahead.
Of course. We'd like to thank Mindy for her presentation. I would like to thank staff for taking time to see us during these times. Most of the comments from the planning department we're okay with, most of the conditions. The only condition we'd just like to clarify was the height. What was the staff's recommendation for the 2-floor height? I know they mentioned the first floor being reduced to 10 feet, but can we get what the limit on the second floor would be?
The second floor did not have any limit that we imposed on it because it was the floor-to-floor height of that area was already less than 10 feet. So the condition only applies to the first floor.
All right, then in that case, then I think we are okay with all the comments and conditions that staff has. we'll work with them to provide all the little details such as the lighting, the wall, the block wall, and anything that needs to be reduced in scale, such as the pathway. And if there's any other comments that need to be addressed, we can hear from the public and go from there.
Great, Mr. Nazarian, thank you for clarifying those questions and also letting us know that applicant is okay with staff's conditions as stated. Is that it from the applicant's point of view? Is there anything else you'd like to state before we go to the public?
I also wanted to add in a little bit of detail about the lot. I wanted to let the public know that the lot is 40 feet wide, including the first floor setbacks and second floor setbacks. So regarding the condition that the mass is a little large, we kind of like tried our best to maximize as much as we could. So the lot is pretty small, and that's kind of what we had to work with as far as the design of the two-story.
So it looks kind of massive as in scale, but it's only because it's actually pushed in so far from the setbacks that's what's kind of left over. Like it looks more large because of the fact that the yard, the whole yard, front yard is 40 feet.
Well, thank you, Ms. Zarukian and Nazarian for those clarification. A 40-foot wide lot is very narrow, and so we certainly understand that after you take your setbacks into consideration, it is going to have a more vertical feel to it compared to other lots. But nonetheless, I very much appreciate you bringing that up.
Thank you. And I think that's all we have to say for right now.
Wonderful. So with that, I'm going to check in with staff to see if we actually have anybody from the public that is interested in speaking, because I don't have anything showing on this end. No public callers is what I'm being told. With that, since there are no public callers, I guess there's no need for a rebuttal of any sort. So we're going to go ahead and close the public portion unless there's anything else you'd like to add at this point.
Not from our end.
Wonderful. So with that, I'll go ahead and close the public portion, and we'll move on to our board members. Mr. Welsh, do you want to start us off?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really like the project. I think it's a unique street with a wide variety of structures and including commercial properties abutting it. So it's I think a successful solution for what they're trying for, and I completely sympathize with their dealing with a narrow 40-foot wide lot and how that will tend to make any structure of 2 stories appear pretty massive. But I think they've done very well breaking up the facade. I love the materials. I think the design is very nice. Regarding staff's comment about that curtain wall, I asked the question because I'm not convinced that we need to do any kind of adjustments on the ground floor. I think that would only be really applicable to the second floor. So I was just trying to make it, clarifying that in our conditions. But otherwise, I think that the project is very nicely done, and I approve it. I am in support of it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Welsh. Ms. Arzamanian?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do really like the design. I like the modern look of it, and absolutely the colors and the materials go well together. I appreciate the staff conditions. In this case, I do think it will improve the project even more. It's a well-designed project as it is, but with those conditions, I think we're going to get a better result. And I just wanted to mention, I do agree with Mr. Welsh about the curtain glass. We should correct that and be a little bit more specific. I like his idea, and I support it. I support the project.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ms. Arzamanian. Ms. Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've been looking at this. There were some things that were answered in everyone's discussions. I'm not certain how well it relates to the surrounding concept, but the surrounding context, but I think it's a nicely designed building. There's a post right at the front entry that is shown as being natural wood, and I don't think it needs to be a condition, but I think that the design team should consider that being a lighter material. If that entry post were, I guess, the smooth stone material or stucco or something else, it might appear lighter. I agree with staff comments. However, I agree further with my fellow commissioners regarding the curtain wall being only reduced on the second floor, and that the first floor there should be adequate fences and so forth. I hope the fences and walls will be compatible with the design. I agree with staff about the roof fascias being oversized for the scale and need to be more proportional. So otherwise, it seems perfectly okay.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. I concur with the board members. I think it's a project that's well designed, well thought out. At the end of the day, they are proposing a single-family home in a multifamily zone, and it's kind of a refreshing proposal to get kind of a down-zoned situation. And so I do support the project as well. I think it's well thought out and well designed. I was going to make some comments about the conditions, but it seems as though the applicant is very much on board. And so with that, I don't think there's much to really talk about. So I concur with my fellow board members. So with that, does anyone, Mr. Platt?
Just in terms of a potential new condition or revised condition for the second level of the curtain wall, the actual condition was written to reduce the number of windows. It's really an area that it's a vertical wall of glass basically into that double height living room area. If you could give us a little more guidance in terms of what you'd like to see there, that would be helpful.
Mr. Walsh, do you want to address that question? Since you were the one that brought up the questions in the beginning?
Yes, sir. It's not exactly a double height. It's the living room is on the ground floor, and then above that is the bedroom, and both of them seem to have the curtain wall of glass there. And so
my mistake. I see that now. Yeah.
Okay. So what I was addressing was that the windows, or that the amount of glazing in that master bedroom on the second floor would be the more appropriate place to potentially try to reduce the amount of glazing there.
Okay, that's clear now, and I see why I was so confused.
Is there, well, with that, Mr. Platt, do you need any other clarifications regarding the conditions? No? Okay. Board members, can we get a motion, please?
I would like to make a motion to approve the project with stated condition and the revised number 6.
And this is Board Member Welch. I'll second that.
So in terms of a roll call, there was board member, or in terms of a motion, the motion was made by Board Member Arzumanian and seconded by Board Member Welch. Roll call, Board Member Arzumanian,
Yes.
Board Member Smith,
Yes.
Board Member Welch,
Yes.
and Chair Simonian.
Yes.
The motion passes 4-0.
All right. Congratulations, Mr. Nazarian and Zarukian. We shall move on to the next case, which is PDR 2003-955-1345 Winchester Avenue. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to staff to kick us off on the presentation.
All right, one moment, please, if you don't mind. Just a break for
Sure, we'll take a
disinfect-
1 minute recess.
we are.
Wonderful. So we don't have, well, we do have the applicant, great. And so we'll go ahead and start with staff.
All right. So this project is located at 1345 Winchester Avenue. I'll start with the description. The applicant is proposing to add a new 676 square foot second story addition and 194 square feet to the first floor at the rear of an existing one-story single-family house with a detached garage on an 8,352 square foot lot located in the R1 zone, floor area district 1. So the site is developed with a 1,044 square foot, one-story Tudor Revival style single-family home with a detached two-car garage. So the slide shows the existing conditions here. And then this is the proposed. The first and second story additions will be located at the rear. A patio cover is also proposed, attached at the ground level of the one-story projection. And it's 5 feet from the interior property line, so it's the one with the dark blue here. The new portion of concrete driveway will match the existing concrete portion at the front of the property, providing a consistent appearance. Because there's a portion that's not there right now, they'll be filling it in with similar concrete to match. And no new landscaping is proposed. The amount of landscaping is sufficient in terms of meeting a zoning code. The mass and scale, I'm gonna go to the massing, yeah. Even though the flat roof addition doesn't match the existing gabled roof, the placement, which is at the rear, somewhat screened by the tall roof at the front, will help it appear less massive. When viewed from the street, the second story is considerably set back from the front portion, diminishing its sense of mass in relation to the existing house. Due to there's some inconsistencies in the drawing, there's a condition that's recommended to clarify the presence and extent of the step backs of the side walls of the second floor addition, which I don't know if you can see on the PowerPoint, from the corresponding first floor walls. So if the second floor addition was at the maximum height of 28 feet, which is not right now, then the new gabled roof would have a lower pitch, which wouldn't match the existing pitch. So that's why they kind of went with the flat option. The elevation drawings show a much taller archway at the front. So there's a condition recommended to verify if this is actually the case, and if it is, to revise the drawings to reflect the actual condition. The window drawing provided does not depict block frame windows as proposed. A condition is also recommended to provide a vertical section, a detailed drawings of a typical existing opening and a new opening at the second floor. Block frame windows are required at all the existing openings. New construction windows may have nail-on frames that are recessed into the new openings using nailing blocks to provide the appearance of a recessed window. So the applicant would need to revise the window schedule as needed. I don't know if you can see from the PowerPoint, but the edge detail around the windows is not clear. Applied trim is not necessary. And either the exposed edge of the jambs and headers or a stucco bullnose are appropriate for this style of house. And also white vinyl windows are not appropriate with the off-white stucco color, and the condition is recommended to use a darker colored vinyl that matches the color of the wood trim at the front bay windows. Condition is recommended to clarify the treatment of the top of the second floor addition's parapet. I don't know if you can clearly see it here. This should feature an architectural solution that provides consistent, crisp lined termination of the walls rather than a sheet metal parapet cap. And the last condition is recommended to revise the drawings to indicate that the stucco finish at the additions will match the existing stucco to remain on the building. The sand finish stucco shown on the material board is not an appropriate match. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you very much. Board members, do we have any questions for staff? I'll take that as a no. So with that, we're going to go ahead and go to the applicant. Well, is it Rafi Nazarian again?
Is Rafi Nazarian? Yeah.
Very good. Mr. Nazarian, you're on the air. Please go ahead and introduce yourself and take us through the project. There may be a delay if you're watching us on TV. So
Yes, Rafi Nazarian.
wonderful. So if you would just mute the TV in the background, so this way you'll have the TV
Yes,
muted.
I did
and-
already. Thank you.
Wonderful. Go ahead. You're on the air.
I was working on this project for a long time, nearly like a year and a half. We went back and forth with staff, with Mr. Manasayan and Mr. J. Pat, which helped me a lot on this. We were trying to keep the second floor with the same type of Tudor type of gable roof. We had designs, several designs, actually 5, 6 of them. The roof pushed back on the left side and pushed back on the right side, and then lower, higher, trying to keep the pitch, but none of them was kind of decent or appropriate. Staff didn't like it, and near me. So finally, with the help of the staff, we came up to the conclusion that this kind of flat, simple flat roof, not visible, pushed back, would be the best solution for this project. At the same time, the driveway is 14 feet, 8 inch wide, and I'm losing a lot of square footage on the side of the house, and south side of the house, which I was planning to extend from the side, but staff didn't recommend that because it's kind of visible through the driveway from the street. And the recommendation was not touch the front and side, just go back and up as much as I can. So I pushed the whole thing back as far as I could to gain some square footage to make at least 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms on the top. And one of the reasons we didn't go to 1-story addition in the back, because with addition of, if you just imaginary put that, if you look at the side plan, the square footage taking the second floor, if you put in the back, it's going to cover the whole landscape area, which I reserved for future pool. And also my client, which is sitting next to me, is very anxious to see what's happening here. He has 3 kids. He's a young family. He lives with his parents, and they're waiting anxiously to start the construction and make their home finished. So kids are growing up. They want to be, they don't want them to be stressful and tiny house living with the family. I had to deal with different kind of questions, problems to make them satisfied, the staff and me, myself, as an architect, also the whole thing for the community. So that's what one of the first point was, to not change anything in the front and the side. And the only thing we had to do is improve, changing the windows, improve the trims, and keep the look and the colors and materials as much as possible. So that's what we did. And the height of the building also, we tried to keep it as low as possible, even though they wanted higher ceiling, higher building, but I pushed them down as much as possible. I included a plan. I think Danny included that plan to the package, which from south elevation, I'm showing a 6 feet tall person standing in the sidewalk, across the street sidewalk, and looking to the building. What you can see is only like a couple of feet the edge of the second floor, very far back, which is almost 100 feet far back. And I don't know if that reduces the mass to the maximum. So I tried myself too. What I can see from that far distance, 100 feet from the cross street sidewalk, almost nothing. So I believe we came up to best solution in order to gain the square footage, add the bedrooms, keep the landscape for kids to play and for the future pool, and not touching the front and side of the building. So I would accept support and help from the board members to approve with any condition, as long as it's approved, so they can go ahead and start engineering, because my client is anxiously waiting for this project to be approved and start the project. And I would appreciate your help, and I thank you upfront for every help you can do to me. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Board members, do we have any questions for the designer? I'll take that as a no, since there were no comments. With that, we'll go ahead and start the public portion of the hearing. There is the public portion, yeah. Line 2, we have Darlene Ducker. So with that,
Hello.
Ms. Ducker, go ahead.
I strongly object to this addition. It really looks like you just stuck a box on top of the house. There's no design to it. And when you're on the downhill side of the house, it really sticks out. there's a big space in between, I guess, a driveway on the neighbor's side. But as you look toward that where the addition's going to be, it's ugly. And like I say, there's no design to it. It's just a big box stuck on the roof, and it just doesn't fit our neighborhood. And I'm afraid that if they put this up here, then somebody else is going to put something ugly like that on top of their house too. So it really ruins the aesthetics of the neighborhood that I've been in for over 50 years. And yeah, that's basically it. It's I'm about a half a block up the street from them, and but that second floor just doesn't fit the neighborhood, and they better forego the play area and the swimming pool and put the house, extend it back at the back of the lot instead of on top of a house like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ducker. With that, we're going to move up to Philip Teller. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello and good evening, Chairman, board members, and city staff. My name is Philip Keller. I'm on the board member of the Northwest Glendale Homeowners Association, and I serve as its DRB representative. I hope everyone is doing well and staying safe. I want to thank all of the city staff and board members for their continued diligence in adapting to this new format during these unpredictable times. I'm here today to speak about our concerns with the proposed project located at 1345 Winchester Avenue. Our main concern with this proposal is the second-story addition, specifically its architecturally incompatible design and articulation with the existing house and the neighboring properties. I draw your attention to page 4 of the staff report, specifically the roof forms item. We do disagree with the staff's analysis that the proposed second-story roof forms are acceptable and justified. The proposed second-story addition, as the previous caller stated, is essentially a rectangular box that's situated at the rear of the first floor. We do very much applaud the applicant's attempt to push the massing to the back. We think that's really great from the front of the house. But we feel that this proposed second-story addition does not really make an attempt to create architecture that is compatible with the existing gabled roof of the first floor of the house. We feel this is not the best solution. The design proposal should feel that it blends in with the rest of the existing house in a way that is complementary, not contrasting. I noted that the applicant stated they'd gone through other iterations. I've not seen any of those. I would love to see some of those other versions of potential roof lines. The staff further states that allowing a flattened roof addition will keep the overall height to a minimum, which is true. However, we feel this is only half the story. As stated in the city's neighborhood design guidelines, one of the main goals of residential remodels and additions should be compatibility. And in this case, we feel that a little compatibility of the second floor addition roof line will go a long way. And yes, redesigning the second floor addition to include some version of a gabled roof or hip roof will potentially add a few feet to the overall height. We feel it would still deliver the needed cohesive element in the proposal that is now lacking. The roof slopes that are at the rear sides of the existing house are lower than the slopes at the front, and they could be used as an inspirational starting point for the second floor roof line revisions. Furthermore, an addition of a few feet of height will be negligible by adding a roof pitch, as the massing has already been well set back in the current proposal, which we applaud. To illustrate my point, one only needs to look directly across the street to the house located at 1340 Winchester. This house started out its life as a one-story structure and at some point received a second-story addition. This addition accomplishes the very important objective of compatibility by utilizing some of the first floor roof lines within the design of its second-story addition. It's not perfect, but we think it works well and can be used as an inspiration model of exploration of a revision of this proposal. Secondly, I would like to just talk briefly about mass and scale. This proposal is 29% larger in square footage than all the other homes in the survey area and 30% larger FAR than average of all the other homes in the survey area. Now, 2,582 square feet is not massive, I admit that, but it is definitely worth noting in comparison with this neighborhood's very modestly sized homes and should be taken into consideration while reinforcing the very important need for the second-story addition to be done very, very well.
Mr. Teller, you've
Yes.
run out of time, so if you would, wrap it up in the next 10 seconds, if you would.
Okay. We would also encourage them to explore design going out the back on the first floor, completely one-story, as 4 other homes of equivalent size on the neighborhood already do that. We recommend this house go back for a redesign. We know the talented architect can accomplish what the owner wants, give them the square footage, but achieve a design that is more compatible with the prevailing design character of the neighborhood. Thank you very much for your time. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Teller. With that, I'm going to go back to Mr. Nazarian. Mr. Nazarian, sorry we lost you for a moment, but I believe you were able to hop back on fairly quickly. There were 2 speakers that had some thoughts. Care to opine on those comments, etc., and let us know what your thoughts are. Mr. Nazarian, are you there? And if you're there, please mute the television so you could speak more freely into the telephone without a delay. I believe your television or computer is still not on mute, so if you would put that on mute in the background, if you would.
Yeah, I did already.
Wonderful. Go ahead.
Sorry, what was the question? Yeah, I heard. I really respect people who are interested and they are concerned about the look of our neighborhood, the design of the building of the city, but they did not go through nearly a year and a half with staff, with the designs I had, with the same recommendation that they are doing, with the pitch, the roof pushed back, the higher roof. But unfortunately, the staff did not recommend that. So I have that plans, I have that designs, I can use them again as long as they approve that. But they did not recommend because they have their own reasons. So I did not design a complete house from scratch. I did not design. I didn't have any more options to keep everybody happy and satisfied. But we really worked hard on this. We went through different options, and I respect the opinion of everybody. But I would like Mr. Manasarian to really, as a witness, talk about this. How many different designs we had, the different pitch, roof, push back, push forward, side. So I want this concerned citizens to know that we thought about that, we worked about that on that, but this is the solution staff recommended. So that's what I can say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nazarian. Does staff want to chime in, or should we go to the board members?
Well, just so you can understand where we've been, and we do have some examples of some of the roof lines that we looked at. This was a difficult project trying to get this addition to fit in with the front house. And Danny, if you could go to the slides that we have.
Yes.
We do have one example where it's more or less the same addition, but with not this one, the one with the hipped roof, a couple of versions of a hipped roof. We thought this was an acceptable solution. It doesn't quite meet the design guidelines in terms of, trying to match roof pitches. We, working with the architect, came to the conclusion that, this might be best resolved with just the simplest of solutions. Hearing from the community, obviously we all know that this was not the ideal design solution to just have the flat roof. Something like this is different than what you see across the street. We also recognize that the house across the street was a very good role model, but a very different situation in terms of the scale and the size of the addition. So we didn't have the ability to work with something that was as well integrated as that design. So just so the board can see that this is one option, we looked at other options that explored more articulation at the facades of the second floor addition. We had trouble getting to a level of anything that we could recommend to the board. So again, we brought the simplest solution to the board, recognizing it's maybe not the ideal solution, and we're just ready to hear what the board's thoughts are. What I do ask from the board as you discuss this, if we could get some very strong direction so that we'll be able to then work with the architect to apply the board's direction. If there are any added conditions to this, that would be very helpful.
Thank you very much, Mr. Platt. Board members, do we have any questions before we start off on deliberation? Board members, do we have any questions for staff at this point before we start off on deliberations? I'll take the silence as a no. So with that, I'd like to close the public portion, and we'll move on to Ms. Arzumanyan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry, I was muted. I wanted to, first of all, thank the staff for your all the work that you've done with the architect, all the iterations. This is a difficult one. I understand that the design and the roof situation was proposed and kind of agreed upon, or well, whatever. The design that we see here was to kind of remedy the kind of height situation, and was shifting it to the back. I can see that it was just done to kind of minimize that second floor look of it. So, I mean, having seen the proposed, the before iterations, I know if that came to us, we're going to ask for reduced height on the roof on the second floor, so it doesn't impact the, you know, overall design of the house. So, and we have done that before, so I appreciate the staff to kind of going with the idea, with the solution, even though it may not be ideal given the design, but it is something that it does fit in with the existing house and the whole project. It is a minimal addition, in my opinion, and I do support the conditions that the staff has added to the project as conditions for approval. I would like to hear what my fellow board members have to say about the project. And I do see another house that I guess the speaker mentioned, and it's similar. However, I just quick comment, by having, if we do approve and this design gets built, I don't think it sets a precedent for the neighborhood. Every project we review it, you know, individually, we consider the neighborhood context, but it's not that everyone's going to slap on something on their building if this goes through. So we do, you know, we want to review this individually and based on, given all the things that we hear from the staff. So I want to hear what other board members have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Arzumanyan. Mr. Welsh?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And yeah, I appreciated hearing the stories about all the iterations back and forth, and I can sympathize with that. And I'm glad to have heard that, because at first I thought this was just, you know, like some of the callers said, a box plopped on top. And I also didn't, you know, I agree with those callers. I don't think that just a box plopped on top is good enough. And, you know, I can appreciate that keeping the height minimized will lessen that visual impact from the street. but it will still be visible. I did do a site visit to the location, and I think it would be visible. And I am more inclined to agree with the neighborhood representative guy who said, you know, we can put a little bit more height if we could get some more articulation in that roof. And I think, in particular, you know, responding to Jay's request for some specifics, I would like to see at least, you know, a gable end, you know, presented in that second story, and you know, maybe the main roof line can be I guess that would be north-south. But you know, if we had a gable end maybe on the left-hand side that could respond and speak to the roof forms at the base of the house, I think that would work. And you might not be able to get, you know, the full height, or you have to have, you know, some slanted walls in there to get the roof form to look right. But that's what I would like to see, because I don't think that the box meets the character of the neighborhood. I think it's not responsive, and I would definitely like to see something change along those lines.
Thank you, Mr. Welsh. Staff is actually toggling between the different previous proposal roof types, and so I'm taking a moment to really study them as well on the big screen here, which you probably see on your small screen where you're calling from. Mr. Manasarian, can you just toggle through proposal 1, 2, and 3 just for my benefit, if you would?
And just for the record, I mean, Rafi, we went through a lot. This, I would say, total of 9.
I see. So this is the 3 best from the 9, let's say, I'm assuming.
Not sure, but it's 3 representative ones. One of the reasons we gravitated toward the hipped roof was because if we're using a shallower pitched gable that would be seen in the context with the more steeply pitched gables at the front, we felt that juxtaposition might not be appropriate, where hipped roofs tend to just have a softer appearance, present less mass toward the neighbors. If we went with I can't remember the pitch, if this is 6 and 12, but it's close to that, we still might be able to get a higher pitch that would be lower than the height limit for the code. I'm not sure that we could get that spanning the entire width of this, but possibly that could be used as perhaps a projection toward the street that would then be seen in the context with the front of the house. Question then is what happens to the rest of the roof, so.
Can I go back to the original, or you want me
to? No, if you would keep number 3 up. Thank you, Mr. Platt, and thank you, board members. I do concur in that it's a simple addition, and I do like the fact.
You haven't hit all of your board colleagues?
Yes, we have. Arzamanian? Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Ms. Smith. If you would, please let us know your thoughts. It's very difficult when everyone isn't sitting next to me. It's hard to kind of see who's on and who hasn't spoken and who has spoke. So I apologize about that.
Understandable. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, staff.
Mr. Platt was saying, you forgot the board members. I'm saying, no, I got everybody. He's saying, no, you didn't. I was like, I kind of did. So sorry about that. Go ahead.
Thanks. I appreciate everyone's comments and staff's, and it was very helpful to hear from the neighborhood. One of the callers was very articulate and well-reasoned in his opinions on the design. My first thought is this design absolutely could be better integrated into the overall altered English Revival design that the house is. Unfortunately, I understand there have been lots of iterations, but what's proposed isn't really compatible with the extant house. which is really pretty much altered English Revival, as I said. As Mr. Platt said, it does not meet the design guidelines, and it's not ideal. So unfortunately, that is a problem. What I was thinking, I was thrilled to see that the addition was pushed back and that it's behind the main ridge. What I was thinking, instead of making it taller and adding a roof form, was that the front walls of the addition could be canted and the windows could be inset where it would just seem to be a little bit more roof. The flat roof isn't a problem to me. It's just the design, which is too prominent. When you look at the building, what you see is that second floor. Unfortunately, the relation of solids to voids on the second floor doesn't really relate to the extant building, which is asymmetrical. The second floor is symmetrical. It would be preferable to push in the north and south sides just a little bit, maybe a foot on either side to reduce its apparent mass. It could actually possibly move forward a little bit if it had that canted wall. The canted wall, what I was sort of envisioning, could be finished in the new roof material and would sort of disappear, and whatever windows end up being used might be deeply inset, almost like dormer windows, and the whole thing would disappear. As it is, it's sort of intentional opposition, unfortunately. I understand that a lot of work has been put into this already. In the requirement for high quality materials, since both of the front bay windows have been replaced and they're being replaced in the project, I would just think that it would be helpful to consider wood windows facing the street, just those two bay windows, if at all possible. They were likely multi-light, who knows what they looked like before. It would just soften the whole appearance of the house. The fascia treatment that's recommended, I think the second floor, the fascia, the prominent fascias that are at the bay windows could also be reduced. It doesn't seem like it seems like the bay windows hoods were maybe re-roofed. Since the roof forms should be consistent with the overall building design, unfortunately, in this case, no matter how hard, no matter how many iterations have been done, it's just missed the mark, unfortunately. And the windows type should complement the architectural design. And in saying that, I'm hoping that even just that first floor might be wood or wood-clad windows would really help that property. So in overall, if the addition appeared to be part of the roof, it would literally disappear, which is what I think we're looking for, and what a second floor addition to a one-story English Revival with pretty steep front-facing gables should do. So that is how I interpret it according to the design guidelines.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. And again, I apologize for not referring to you earlier. So I do appreciate all the work that this designer architect has done. It seems as though it's been somewhat of a long process with staff over a simple project. I think during the reiteration, some things have turned out fairly nice, right? So the idea is that the second floor is set back quite a bit from the street. I think that is a positive, and I think that's actually a very good first step when you're proposing a second-story addition in this kind of a neighborhood, because there's just not a ton of second-story analogs to consider in and around the area. And so I do appreciate the setback. I don't particularly have an issue with, or requiring an additional setback from the sides or the second floor to be inset anymore. I think it's when we were looking at some of the facade pictures or elevations that were kind of depicted on the big screen here, the house already has kind of a vertical aspect to it, and I believe that if we kind of create a narrower wedding top cake, it's going to really emphasize that. So I'm okay with the site planning portion of it. I'm okay with the second floor addition to give them some room to expand onto the backyard. I mean, when you have 3 children in a small home, that's a lot of people that you need to try to house and work around. So I do understand the difficulties of the applicant. In regards to the overall roof mass, roof shape, and the flatness of the roof, I'm kind of looking at larger depictions of it here on the big screen, so maybe I'm able to kind of get at least it seems to me as though if I'm comparing these 3 or 4 options, I do concur that the flat roof is, although not ideal, it seems to work better than the 3 proposals, at least, that are depicted. I think from the 3, I'd prefer proposal number 3, and if you would wait right there, Mr. Monassarian, I think if we had to just choose between proposals 1, 2, and 3, I would gravitate towards proposal number 3. However, if proposal number 3 was presented, I do agree with Ms. Arzumanyan that our thoughts would be lower the height, in that it's got too much of a emphasis on that second floor. Although it steps back, it's still prominent. And so then when I take at least what I perceive as the best proposal, and compare it to the flat roof, I reluctantly kind of say, well, it seems as though in this case, this flat portion is certainly, I think, a better option and will be less intrusive than proposal number 3. Are there better options out there? And is this designer capable of working with staff to do it? I don't know that question or answer, I should say, but they've been kind of going at it for a while. And I believe some of the conditions that are provided by staff actually will help improve the project. So I'm kind of in line with Ms. Arzumanyan in that the project is well thought out in regards to the design, and then with staff's conditions, I think will make it a better project. Jay, by the way, did you have any examples of this canted roof that Ms. Smith is referring to? Were any of those or something similar, did they come up during your discussions with staff?
We didn't discuss that, certainly. And if Mrs. Smith could clarify that, because I'm assuming that that wouldn't be a canted roof, that would be a direct extension from the ridge line of the existing. But if that's the case, let us know, and that would move the mass of this closer to the street, but it might integrate it better. Although I do think, as I'm visualizing it, it seems like it could be a very unusual solution because we're stepping in from the sides several feet on each side. So I just wanted to get verification if that was the goal of that proposal.
And Mr. Platt, and would such a roof put this over the 50% mark?
I don't think we have any 50% issues in terms of demolition.
That wouldn't put us over the 50%.
But then that portion of the roof would have to get torn out.
Is that the front portion of it, or?
If I'm understanding it correctly.
I think if you look at sheet A4, where we have the section through the house, we could project a line from the ridge following the 45-degree angle of the roof. And the question I have at that point is also what happens on the sides, the side facades, where we would have a kind of we'd have a flat wall with kind of a wedge angled shape at the front, which would be very visible from the sides. So,
Okay.
but I'm still not sure if I was hearing that recommendation accurately or not.
Mr. Platt, this is Commissioner Smith. Thank you for the question. I think what my recommendation was, in order to better integrate that second floor into the appearance of the house, would be to leave the top of the wall where it is. As I understand it, it's pretty far back from the roof, from the main roof ridge. It would just project out toward where it meets the roof, almost like a roof, and it would be finished in a roofing material but have window openings. That way it would literally disappear. On the sides, I hadn't thought it through as well. I've seen lots of more earlier than the 1920s sort of houses where there is a second floor and then just a few feet of eave and ridge sticks out, and then there's more wall. I think what I was focusing on the most was that front elevation, but the side elevations could actually do the same, which isn't ideal with the flat roof, but it at least would create a situation where it would be better integrated into the overall extant house rather than just landing on it. So does that clarify it?
Yeah.
I think we understand it, but I think from the front, at least I see how the roof will be camouflaged if we have a canted roof from the street side.
Could I just interrupt, Danny?
Yeah.
Could you please change the slide? The slide we're looking at, the addition is much closer to the front ridge than the proposal. So if we could just show the side there we go. I wasn't sure if that slide was influencing any of that discussion. So this is, if we keep the second floor in the proposed location pushed to the back, that's where I'm having a little trouble visualizing this. But I believe what Mrs. Smith or Commissioner Smith just said was that she was expecting it to be kept at this angle, at this location, but then canting it from from the proposed location. Is that correct?
It's a little hard to follow because of the 8-minute delay. I think the top of the parapet where it is now is where the top of the where the top of that on the front. The top of the new one would be, but it would be at a cant with the bottom of the cant, of course, going deeper toward the front.
And then having a roof above that at a different angle. So we'd keep the steep angle of the front roof for the walls, and then so we'd have kind of a dual pitch roof there?
Well, we're going to have, as it is, it's going to be, no, the building itself, the addition would have a flat roof, but what you would see from the street would look more like, if you recall those mansard mania from the 70s, it would be almost like a mansard that wrapped around maybe only to the first window, incorporating it on the sides.
So it'd be a sort of a truncated pyramid, I would think, a slice of a pyramid at least at the front?
Yeah, flat with a flat top. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Now I visualize it.
I think maybe holding up a piece of paper or something.
And the question, at least what I'm trying to visualize in my mind, is if such a roof could be integrated into this design with the footprint of the second floor as is, or would that second floor have to shift in from both setbacks and perhaps even shift forward towards the street in its rear, from its rear location, in order for the windows to have any kind of a decent exposure. Because I think in order to have a usable space, especially on the second floor, there are going through this trouble of a second floor is to get some usable windows and space, and some of those deep dormer-like windows certainly don't add enough light, I think, as to what's being proposed. So I'm having a hard time visualizing how that would place itself on this specific design. But I guess with Mr. Platt, is there another?
Well,
you were about to say something.
Well, I think Commissioner Welsh, if we go back to the front elevation of alternative 2 or 3, Danny, with the that has the lower pitched hipped roof. Here we go. Or go back to number 2, I guess. I wonder if, Mr. Welsh mentioned having a separate roof over on the left side to kind of echo the gables on the first floor. That I think could be a possibility rather than having the symmetrical addition that you see here, shift that central bay that does project and give a little articulation to the front facade of the addition over to the side. The question there is, are we okay with that just being a shallower pitch? I think it would look okay. Again, not ideal. That's the problem with this proposal, this house, I guess, is we're having trouble finding a perfect solution. But that's something we should also consider.
Okay. Well, we've had staff's comments. We've certainly had different proposals to look at. We have Board Member Smith's recommendation. So with that, I'd like to see if someone is open to making a motion to see how we could proceed with this case.
Hi, this is Commissioner Smith. I'd like to make a motion to return for redesign to revise the design.
Yeah, we would need to have any significant condition. We'd need to have agreement from the board about what conditions would be applied to that decision, rather than just the recommendation to return.
Is there a second for a return for redesign?
Yes, this is Commissioner Welch. I would second the return for redesign with whatever conditions, the staff feels they need to accomplish that.
I think
in general, a motion needs to be made with conditions. In that way, each board member can assess those conditions, determine whether they agree or disagree with those conditions, possibly make alternate motions if that doesn't gain traction. But in terms of just leaving us with this discussion, we have so many ideas on the table right now that we would have a lot of trouble working with the designer to come up with a solution to bring back to the board. So
I also think a return for redesign is a harsh approach here, because I think we basically have enough to provide some really solid direction one way or another, which we should. And it seems as though everybody has a pretty good grasp on the situation to try to remedy and come up with a good proposal here. So, Ms. Smith, since you brought up the motion, I'm going to refer to you again to see if you could craft some conditions that would provide more color to this return for redesign.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was cut off briefly, so I can just imagine what happened in the last couple of minutes. The motion for redesign would be recommending to camp the front and side walls, at least wrapping to the first window. It would be finished in the roof material. The back, I think, would stay about the same. it's a little hard to do it without drawing it, and recommend staff's other recommendations of stucco, etc., and adding the recommendation that wood windows be used at the front with multi-light.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Smith. Do we have a second for that motion?
Yes, I would second that.
I've often added a little staff interjection. Putting wood windows on this house is deeply different than the direction we've offered to many, many applicants over many years now. And so it definitely is a deviation from precedent. I've made the same caveat when in the past we've always recommended higher quality windows than vinyl. The board in recent years has been more open to vinyl on more modest scaled houses if that vinyl was colored, and that's why we thought the colored vinyl was in keeping with board precedent and direction we've received. But moving toward wood is something that we haven't done outside of our historic neighborhoods and properties on a regular basis.
Thank you. It would just be going with the high quality materials to just sort of to make up for what else has happened to it. So it's just following the design guidelines.
No, I certainly understand Ms. Smith's point. However, when we look at precedents and how this board has looked at similar cases in the past, very rarely do we end up having to dictate wood windows when something's already been altered, etc. So that's what I think Mr. Platt was trying to bring up, to be consistent with the general direction of what this board has done in the past. Thank you, Ms. Smith. So with that, I'd like to see if there's any consensus on this return for redesign.
Could we ask staff to...
Go ahead, Ms. Arzumanyan.
Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I would like to hear the conditions for the stated motion again, one more time.
Yes, I agree. That's what I was asking for as well.
Okay, great. I believe that the staff conditions will still apply, although they reference the vinyl windows, so we could change that if the wood windows are required. I'm just scanning these right now. So all...
Mr. Platt, the wood windows were only recommended at the existing bay windows, which were proposed to have new windows anyway.
Yeah, when I read back the conditions, I'll get there. First, I was going over the existing staff conditions to make sure we don't have to dramatically alter any of those. I believe those are okay. The one about the parapet would still apply for the rear portions of the second floor addition. So now we'll go into the new conditions that were read in for this motion. The first condition would be to cant the front and side walls of the second floor addition. I presume that the angle of that cant would be the same as that of the front, of the existing roof on the lower level. The finish of those canted walls would be in roofing material to match the existing and proposed, or the existing roofing material on the house. That wrap would either extend all the way down the side facades or possibly wrap only to the first window opening. The rear as part of that condition, we could just keep the rear flat roof portion of the addition would remain. And then we have the proposal to replace the front windows in the two bays at the first floor facing the street with new wood multi-light windows. And then I think you mentioned the stucco, but that's one of the staff conditions. So,
if I could interject, Mr. Platt, the roofing material was to go past the first window opening, so that first window opening would be the canted looking roof material, okay, incorporating that first window.
Right. We would wrap to at least. I thought you had also left the opportunity to run the canted wall all the way to the back. But if you'd rather have it just at the front, that we can make that clear. But definitely wrapping past the first window.
Right, that was the minimum. Thanks.
Ms. Smith, I have a question. With such prescribed detailed conditions as what you've just put forth, why ask for a return for redesign? I don't see why this applicant would have to pay those fees, go through the delay, if what we're describing is so prescribed, assuming there's even support for this motion. But I don't understand that mindset. Can you please help me out with that?
Where my phone wasn't cooperating. In that this design is reasonably different from what we're looking at. If staff were comfortable with staff ensuring that, it sounds like a big ask. I'm not sure. Perhaps you can provide direction.
I don't think I could add any more direction, because for a simple addition, I think this is already very heavy-handed. And so I'm sorry, but I can't provide any more direction. I believe that staff is going to have the same ease or difficulty, whichever way you want to look at it, working with an applicant when something is so prescribed. And I'm not entirely sure what the difference would be if it is a return for redesign or just approval with such conditions. So that's what I'm hoping you could shed some light on.
So, Mr. Chair, if I can interject, I think you make a good point. I think that if we were to clearly articulate a fairly prescribed solution and just instruct staff to work with the applicant to come up with that an acceptable version of that, dealing with the myriad challenges that they would have to do, I think that would be acceptable from my perspective.
Very good.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, and I just wanted to echo that, what Mr. Welch said. That's hence the reason I asked for the new conditions to be read again. Mm-hmm. I do think they're very precise, and we agree on conditions. I don't see why we need this needs to be a return for redesign. It can be approved.
Okay.
If I could seek a little more clarification on the aspect of the canted walls. As Mr. Simonian mentioned, we have to determine where the wall begins and ends. I assume that we're going to be bringing in the roof perimeter further to allow the bottom of the canted wall to reach the point where the addition now rises from the existing roof. And in doing that, we will have some canted internal walls, or at least perhaps some dead space, which may be okay because those are closets at the front of the two front-facing areas are closets for the bedrooms. So it could work there, but I just want to verify that where the cant begins and ends so that we can work with the architect.
Thank you, Mr. Platt. I was picturing in the motion that the top of the existing parapet in front that faces the street would be where it is now, and that would just go at an angle toward the roof, deep enough. I can't prescribe I can't recommend the exact pitch, and on the sides, because the addition is the width of the house, I think it would be reasonable that that where the pitch meets the roof, that be the bottom. So it might need to it might lose a foot or two on either side in order to achieve that balance.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. I'd like to move this along, if I may. So there's a motion on the floor, and I believe we're getting in the weeds here. And so I think the best way to go about doing this is let's take roll call on the motion, and then we could then see the exact direction that we're taking to try to iron out these details because I do have some thoughts, but I don't want to convolute the situation by interjecting the thoughts at the moment. So I'd like us to take roll call if we can.
Chairman Simonian, at this point in time, we had a motion by Board Member Smith to return for redesign with clarifications in terms of the conditions. There was a second by Board Member Welch. It appears that Board Member Welch might be recanting his, sorry, I had to, recanting his second.
Right.
Is that the case, Board Member Welch, or?
Board Member Welch, if you are stepping back from the second, then you could simply state so, because that's the feeling I got, or we could just do a roll call. Which do you prefer?
Yeah, no, that's fine. I can recant my second and focus on trying to get towards the other solution.
Wonderful. Oh, thank you for that clarification. I'd like to take a moment.
Second?
Well, I assume there isn't, but just to be precise. So is there a second for for Board Member Smith's return for redesign? Going once, going twice. I take the silence as a no. And so I'd like to bring something up. I think we're a fairly large city with a lot of activity, planning and building and safety-wise within our city. And in the past, when we have been so exact with our conditions, where we've prescribed something so vividly, but we haven't done so with some trace paper on the drawings where we actually look at what that will do for the space, how it will reduce the footprint of that unit, what will be the height of those closets, what will be the header height, etc., puts applicants that frankly are regular mom and pop applicants that are simply trying to create a second-story home in an already very expensive real estate market to raise their kids in, for a simple process to turn into a multi-year process. I think that's wrong. I think if you have a situation where we are taking a trace paper to the drawings and prescribing things so specifically on a second floor addition, I think we've missed the mark of the intent of the Design Review Board. We are going to get 10-unit projects, we're going to get 50-unit projects, we're going to get dealerships. We've gotten those big projects, and they're going to come, and they will come. And we can't spend an hour and a half talking about the shape of a form of a roof and the exact angle. And as a licensed architect, I could tell you it's very difficult to visualize and to say, yeah, that's going to work. And so I'm having an issue with that process and where we've gone. And I think we just need to be more concise with our thoughts, very quick, state them as so, and if there's some sort of a agreement, we move on. If there isn't, we try again. And so on this note, we have gone down a road where we've prescribed some very specific roof shape forms that I'm not convinced are possible that will work with the exact footprint of that second story. I don't know. And so I'm personally unwilling to move along that direction to be that prescriptive because I think it's asking too much of the applicant and staff. That said, I'm open for conditions and if not, I can maybe move the gavel along and make a condition and make a motion.
Great, Chair Simonian, thank you for that. This is Commissioner Smith. It is my understanding that we're not tasked with figuring out how an alteration might change the inside or what the interior design is. So I understand much of what you said, but I have an issue with that. So go ahead with wherever you were.
Point well taken and understood. So do we have a motion from board members at this point? Going once, going twice?
I have a motion. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Commissioner. I have a motion to approve the design with strong conditions that the second floor addition be finished like the roof, and that the designer explore the idea of canting the roof and work with staff, and that the other applicable conditions by staff be part of the motion.
Okay. Mr. Platt, do you, oh, go ahead, Mr. Welsh.
Yeah, I was going to just say, I mean, perhaps we could give a little bit more generic guidance and focus on the fact that we think that we need to have some form of a gabled or shingled roof in some way that is more responsive to the design of the house itself, and that might involve, canted roofs, or other potential solutions, but that it is generally believed that we need to have the design of the roof or the facade of that second floor addition be more responsive to that gabled feature of the front portion of the house.
I am very comfortable with that. This is Board Member Arzamanian.
Mr. Platt, are those general but yet specific enough for our intent for you to work with the applicant?
I just want to verify, are we focusing on Mr. Welsh's comments or
Yeah.
Mrs. Smith's or both?
I don't think we could do both because they conflict. And so I think Mr. Welsh was thinking this through and made some comments. However, there was a motion on the floor based on a canted approach. And then Mr. Welsh brought out some comments which Ms. Arzamanian agreed with, which I'm more in line with as well. And so with that, I believe the best way to keep Robert's Rule of Order is Ms. Smith has made a motion, which is very different than Mr. Welsh's comment. So I'd like to see if there is a second for Board Member Smith's motion. Going once, going twice. And I'm saying those terms because it's very difficult because of the delay when we're all not sitting together. I want to make sure I got everybody. So that motion did not move forward. Mr. Welsh, would you like to make a motion, please?
Okay. So, could Jay, would it be possible for you to sort of try to phrase the thoughts that I had encapsulated before into how you would like to see a motion drafted that would be appropriate for you?
Can I make a suggestion on a motion? Is that possible? Or language for a condition for there to be a motion?
I think you can, as long as you're not making it and others want to make that motion in your language.
Okay. So I think we all agree on staff's conditions as stated. I believe the only part of it that there is some discrepancy on is whether to replace the front windows, bay windows with wood. Besides that, from what I see, everyone is in agreement on staff's conditions. Is that correct, board members?
Yes.
Well, except for the roof features.
Correct. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
So the roof and the bay windows. Besides that, at least we got staff's conditions more or less resolved. With that,
Agreed, yeah.
okay, I'm going to leave the bay window matter aside at the moment. Whoever's making the motion could integrate that in. In regards to the roof, the direction is that a flat roof is not the right approach. Staff should work with applicant to explore whether it's a hipped or a gabled or a canted roof However, the second floor location is preferable as depicted, and staff shall concentrate with the applicant to simply work in a more desired non-flat roof into the existing location of that second floor.
We can do that.
Okay? That is a possible condition for this board to consider.
Mr. Chair, I like that. I would just add if we could include a reference to being responsive to the existing front facade of the house, and that the design should be complementary towards that, and try to blend in as many of those elements as possible.
Okay? Very good. Mr. Welch, are you comfortable? Well, you had started out to make a motion, so I don't want to cut you off, in which case you want to continue making your motion and integrate your support or lack thereof of the windows, the wood windows in the motion, if you would.
Yes, so I will carry that forward. So I would make a motion that we approve the project with the existing staff conditions, as well as the condition that the roof design be reworked with staff to work with the architect and the applicant to correspond better to the existing design of the house, and the flat roof being not the acceptable design, but we have to go with some kind of a roof structure and design that is more in keeping with the character of the house and its surroundings. And in terms of the bay windows at the front, I would agree that they should be replaced with something that is of a higher quality. I don't necessarily know that we need to specify wood. I would just say that we should specify that they be replaced with a very high quality divided light windows.
Thank you, Mr. Welsh. Do we have a second on this motion?
Second, this is Arina.
Wonderful. Could we have roll call, please?
That was a motion to approve with conditions. The motion made by Board Member Welch, seconded by Board Member Arzumanian. In terms of a roll call, Board Member Arzumanian?
Yes.
Board Member Smith?
A very weak yes.
Board Member Welch?
Yes.
And Chair Simonian?
Yes.
The motion passes 4-0.
I'd like us to take a moment and stop here for a moment. And I'd like us in the future, board members, to be as concise as possible as when we're giving our conditions, to try to move things along fairly quickly. I don't think it's in the interest of the public or the applicants or others if we get into the nitty-gritty of detailed discussions that we did today. I think that is putting staff in a very difficult position, and it's going to frustrate applicants, and it's going to create a big problem for mom and pop applicants. And so I'd like us to stay on topic, give our conditions as quickly as possible, and if I have to, I will do what I did today to try to help out as much as possible. So I do appreciate everyone's time. We still have the applicant on line 1. I assume I could just release that individual. Is that right, Mr. Platt? Okay. So with that, I'd like us to go over the minutes. Staff, are there any minutes for us to review?
We actually voted on the minutes at the beginning of the meeting.
It's been so long since that I've lost track. I'm sorry.
No, not a problem.
So,
Mr. Chair, I move we adjourn.
thank you.
There's a motion to adjourn at 6:55. Thank you.